have a unique opportunity that I don't know, at least to my knowledge, we've ever done at Writers Expo before, and that is we're kind of for the period getting away from novelists and poets and screenwriters and graphic novelists, and we're going with just more like average reality of life and how writing is a part of so many careers in some way, shape, or form. So when we thought about putting this panel together months and months ago, I went to Dr. Rodriguez over at the admin building and I said, hey, do you know what careers the highest number of LHS students are thinking about going into? And he said, yeah, we've got data on that from a survey, and it turns out there were 4 fields that the highest number of students were interested in. Health sciences was one, something regarding business, which I know is broad, was one, something regarding like advertising and marketing and graphic design, that was one, and then health sciences, which of course is also a really broad field, was also one. So we targeted locally in our community people who have expertise in those fields, and we thought we would bring them in so that we could ask questions and hear from them about the writing that happens in their day-to-day career. And then you, of course, will have a chance, I promise, to ask questions yourself so that you can figure out for your life the goals that you have, the things that you might be going into, how you can tailor your education even here at LHS to help set yourself up for success, okay? So, first, maybe if each of you could just give us your name, your job title, where you work, and then also perhaps where the job is located locally. That would be great.
Hi everybody, my name is Janson Luedtke. My title is engineering manager. I work for a manufacturing company called LMT Onsrud. We're located in Waukegan.
Hi, glad to be here. I'm John Zebell. I own the School of Rock in Libertyville, and you think you all know where it is, on Highway 176.
Hi, I'm Katie Foster. I'm the clinical director at Youth and Family Counseling, which is an outpatient counseling center. We have our first building here in Libertyville, but we're also in Round Lake and Gurnee.
And I think I mentioned health sciences twice and forgot to say engineering was the 4th one. How about this, starting with Ms. Foster and then working our way back. Just give us a little more information about like what your role entails on a weekly basis, what it is like you're actually doing in your position.
Yeah, sure. So as the clinical director, I have 5 people, well, I have 3 people who report to me, and those are my site directors, and they run our 3 offices. And so what I do is I oversee all the administrative and the clinical work of youth and family counseling. I'm a trained social worker. So I provide the clinical oversight, the decisions about safety, the decisions about how we're going to do certain cases, but then also I run the business side, making sure that all of my clinicians are documenting their services, that our bills are getting paid, and that we're collecting our claims. So I do basically the oversight of the entire agency, and I report to my executive director, who interfaces more directly with our board of directors.
Yeah, as a small business owner, you do pretty much everything in the business. You recruit the instructors, you recruit the students, you market, you do billing, you do invoicing. It's quite a lot of work, and it's quite a lot of responsibility to yourself and the people who work for you and the clientele that you have. So in terms of being a part of it, I'd like to think of a small business person as being someone who is the face of the business and the soul of the business. So what we do is we look after, small business people look after every detail that goes on in their operation and make sure it's up to what they expect and what their clientele expects. And at the end of the day, I think it's very rewarding to be a small business owner because you control everything and you can take a lot of pride in what you do.
My job is to break things. More specifically, to find out the limits at which things break. The company that I work for makes solid carbide round cutting tools, so you guys might know them as drill bits, router bits, end mills, that sort of thing. And I'm tasked with developing new and better types of tooling, and that involves finding the limits at which those things break. And we do that on the machines, CNC machines specifically, so if you guys have any exposure to that here in shop class or woods, you guys kind of know what I'm talking about. We get to have a lot of fun, and we don't have a lot of accountability, except for when those things break at our customers. So we have to do all of that stuff ahead of time in the lab, so that we can find the limits to which these things can operate effectively and efficiently. And that takes a detailed approach. We have to look at things analytically. We have to think about problems that could potentially occur and try to replicate those in a laboratory setting, so that all of that stuff is done before our customers have spent money purchasing the things that we manufacture.
And Mr. Zebell, you worked for a while as an advertising executive, right? Can you just take us through what some of the work was you did back then?
Yeah, this is like a fourth career for me, and I've my background was University of Wisconsin Journalism School, class of '81. Turns out to be not the greatest time to graduate from a journalism school in the middle of a major recession. You guys don't know what bad economic times are like, but imagine double-digit unemployment and double-digit inflation. That's the economy I graduated into. I was a journalist. I wrote for newspapers. I won newspaper awards in Wisconsin. Wrote for, my career is it's a progression that a writer can have, where I went from journalism writing in newspapers to where I wrote sports, opinions, columns. I took pictures. I was a really do-it-all kind of a journalist in Wisconsin. Then I was a magazine writer. Then I was a PR guy where I wrote company magazines, and I wrote speeches for executives. And speech writing is a little bit different, but as a writer, you have to really develop a way of approaching assignments. From there, I realized you can make more money in advertising, so I went into advertising, and I did writing in advertising, but I mostly did management, and in a management role and client service in advertising. Communication with clients and creative people is what you do as an account executive in an advertising agency. So you are bringing the needs and the vision of your client to your creative team. They don't want to hire creative people because they're all kind of a little bit off the wall, and you have them interpret and put creative stuff that executives at Kraft Foods can't do on their best day, and you bring them the ideas. So you're basically a communicator internally and with your client. And then in some time, I think everybody should look at their career as having a horizon, and a horizon being that when at some point you're going to be a little bit old for it. And advertising is certainly a young person's game. And in fact, we were chatting up here a little bit. She thinks of herself as a zennial, I'm actually a boomer. So a boomer has gone through where I started. I worked on a manual typewriter with a typesetter. So you would write stuff on paper, edit it on paper, give it to someone who would sit at a typesetting machine and typeset it. And out of this machine would come a tape of the columns. You cut them out and paste them. So you've heard cut and paste in a computer. Well, it actually was literally cutting and pasting. And they take a picture of it, and then it would go on into a newspaper. That is pretty old school. So I've seen all of it. So you got to realize you're going to have a horizon. The beauty of being a writer is that never horizons. That never ends. You can always write, and it translates unbelievably into all kinds of things. I could give a whole lecture or talk on how you will apply your abilities as a writer to do absolutely anything you want. It's the greatest skill you can possibly have. That's just a little bit. Is that what you're looking for?
That's great.
Too much?
Yep.
Too
no,
much?
you're good. You're good. It creates a lot of questions in my mind, but we'll get to it. So we've got a journalism major. Ms. Foster, Mr. Luedtke, what did you guys major in? Are you using it?
So in college, I majored in psychology, which I highly recommend, and it prepares you to do nothing. So I did a psychology degree with a religion minor, and then I went and got a job, and that's when I found my real passion, which is social work. And so my master's degree is in social work, and that's what I use mostly throughout my day. And of course, to get all of those degrees, there was the essay writing, the paper writing, all of that stuff. But I would say currently writing for me is professional writing, which is a really strong skill set to develop, as well as what I've been exploring more recently is how to take my professional writing skills and tweak them into a bit more of a creative writing skill to then use social media to bring attention to youth and family counseling as one of the forward-facing people of the agency.
I have a manufacturing engineering degree from Northern Illinois, and luckily I am using that degree in a manufacturing setting, in an engineering setting, and writing has been an important part of my entire educational career and now my professional career. As you guys are now experiencing, writing is a part of your everyday life. You guys have to do it in every part of your coursework. That continues on through college, and it will continue on into your professional careers. In my case, I write a lot of emails. I don't like writing emails, but it's a big part of my job. But the other part of that is report writing and procedure writing. Being in an engineering role, a lot of that is defining what the standards are and making sure the standards are upheld. For example, we test a tool, we establish that the tool needs to run at a certain set of parameters, and those need to be established and standardized, and then that can be communicated to the customer. So it's all about establishing it and communicating it, and the way that those things are communicated are done not only just with writing, but also verbally, and through reports, through presentations, face-to-face contact, and meetings. And so it all ties together, whether you like it or not. Your writing, your verbal communication, your nonverbal communication is all extremely tied together. And it really helps establish your guys' trajectory. How good you are at those things can determine how far you're able to go in your respective careers.
Awesome. All right, so we've all probably sat through panels before, and we know they can get a little repetitive, question after question after question. So we decided we would break it up a little bit today, have a little bit of fun, and do a little bit of a trivia thing. And you guys can sort of participate as well. So I'm going to fire every once in a while a trivia question at our panelists that's sort of Writers Expo, Libertyville related, if you will. They each have a whiteboard and a marker and an eraser for when the time comes to do that. If you each want to grab yours for the first question, I'm going to give you your first trivia question. You guys don't give them the answer. I'm sure you're going to know a lot of these. But we do have a prize up front. I have 7 questions. If in your head you get 6 out of the 7 correct, come on up at the end of the period. I have a prize for you. If anyone goes 7 for 7, I'm actually going to call you a liar, but I might take your word for it and give you an even bigger prize. We'll see. Okay, so question number 1 for our panelists and for our audience, and of course, audience, keep the answer to yourself. Here we go. Pippa Sue, a 2008 graduate of LHS, was one of the original cast members for a Broadway musical that won not only Best Musical at the Tony Awards, but also a Pulitzer Prize for Drama. This is a 2-point question. Number 1, what is the name of the musical? And for a bonus point, can you name the person who wrote it? 2008, she graduated. And if anyone knows the Jeopardy tune, you know, maybe we'll bring you up and you can sing it into a mic too. They're writing. Mr. Zebell says he doesn't know. We'll see. Ms. Foster, are you feeling confident?
I am very confident.
Very confident. 2 or 1 point?
I'll get both.
Okay. Mr. Luedtke?
100%
100% confident. Okay, all right. Wrong. All right, so Mr. Zebell, why don't you hold yours up first? Let's see what you got. Let's have Mr. Zebell go first since he thinks he's so wrong.
Wicked?
Wicked is incorrect.
I made that. I mean, hold on.
You could argue that it's something of a minor theme of the work, though. So we'll give you a pat on the back. Yeah. Mr. Luedtke, what do you got?
Guys, it's cats.
Yes or no? No. Sorry, Mr. Luedtke. No, it's not cats. All right, Miss Foster. Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda. That is 2 points. Well done. All right, Miss Foster, give yourself just like 2 little tick marks up at the top left. We'll kind of keep score that way. Anybody in the audience, how many 2 for 2?
I would have used my alias if I knew if this was going to embarrass me.
Right, well, 2 for 2, how many people in the audience? All right, good. All right, that's a good start. All right, back to writing. Mr. Luedtke, you talked about emails. A couple other things have popped up. Is there any type of writing in either 3 of your weekly routines that you haven't mentioned yet that you just want to mention quickly? Just to give us an idea, the sorts of writing.
I would say one of the things that I write is also internal communication. So it's not just emails, it's policy, it's discipline, it's rewarding of great behavior. So I spend the vast majority of my day sitting at my computer writing something, whether that be a report to the court, a report to a parent, a report to a funding source. So we are funded by a variety of grants, and those grants require certain levels of reporting. And it's important that I'm able to communicate both thoroughly but concisely how we're making the impact that we say we are so that people will keep giving us money. So that's a really important skill to keep the business running and to be able to continue to do the good work that we do.
I'd say the best routines I have are about setting aside a specific part of the day to write. So I write best early, and I write best early in the afternoon and then late. So I tackle some writing. First thing I get at is sort of the business writing sort of things, in collecting thoughts from the day before. Then in the middle of the day, it's kind of a more reactive mode to things that have happened very recently. And then in the evenings, it's more like collecting thoughts or ideas or documenting things that I'd like to remember because I'm skittish. At the end of the day sort of routines. So I think having a time to write is probably, for me, the most important thing in doing it, because I would like to be doing nothing. I'm like pretty lazy at heart. So setting aside time to write is really a key.
Mr. Luedtke, any other types of writing that you do on a weekly basis?
Many types. I mean, a lot of it is very boring. But I try to make it fun for myself by being as good at these boring things as I possibly can. And that involves being succinct, yet detailed. Conveying the message that you need to convey in the shortest amount of space possible, because in any given workday, things are moving quick. You need to move quick. You need to respond quickly. And being succinct is the key to that. So whether you're shooting an email off to somebody, you're writing a report, you're sitting in a meeting giving a presentation, it's all about how to do that effectively in the shortest amount of time.
Okay, so succinctness, one key takeaway here today. Mr. Zebell, Ms. Foster, what would you say is another really key thing maybe high schoolers can work on in terms of writing skill for career?
In terms of, writing skills. Remember this, your audience, who you're writing to, and take for granted people don't read. Take for granted that they have short attention spans. Take for granted they're going to be interrupted in whatever you've written them. They're going to be interrupted somewhere, either in their mind or in reality. of what you're reading. So get to it quickly. Like a journalism skill is, they call it the lead of the story. Remember, that's why journalism writes the story in the first paragraph or the first couple paragraphs, because people don't read the whole thing. Don't expect people to read the whole thing. Get to the point very quickly, especially if there's a to-do, like you're gonna ask somebody to do something, you might as well put that in the headline. I want you to do this, because that might be as far as they get. And respect your audience's time and their mindset. And generally, you'll do a lot better if you do. Thinking of the audience more than the exercise and what you're trying to communicate. Think about them. That's about it.
I want to double down on what I would call thorough but concise. So you have to make sure that you get everything that you need to get communicated to the person in there, but you have to do it quickly, you have to do it concisely, you have to get to the point. But also in social services, our mantra is if you didn't document it, it didn't happen, period. So if you tell me 2 weeks later, well, I did that, I'm gonna ask you if it's written in your note. And if you say no, then I'm gonna tell you it didn't happen. We deal often with people who are in crisis or otherwise involved in the legal system. And so it can often be required of us that we provide documentation of what we have done or have not done, and to keep somebody safe or to follow up on something. And so it is critical in my field that we document our work and we document it quickly and on time. And that we do it thoroughly. So you'll often see in my world where I'm writing things as we're talking because I cannot take the chance that I won't be able to remember it later. I might have to go back and tweak it, but I am constantly taking notes to make sure that I have everything available to me so that when I do have to report it back out, I can review my notes and get it all together.
Awesome. Yeah, lots of good nuggets so far. We're going to get to another question that can bring out some nuggets for our audience. But let's do another trivia question. Mr. Zebell, this might be more boomer generation question, so here you go. Famous LHS alum Marlon Brando starred in a play written by Tennessee Williams that was then made into a movie directed by, I forget how you pronounce this guy's name, I think it's Ilya Kazan. Mr. Ebling, are you here? Ilya Kazan, okay. The movie was nominated for 12 Academy Awards. Brando himself was nominated for Best Actor. What is the name of this play/movie? Is there any, don't say it, audience, but is there anyone in the audience who's like, oh, I know this, besides Mr. Ebling and Mr. Schmidt? We got a few people. All right. What is your generation called now? Gen Z? Okay. If Gen Z individuals know an answer to this question, that's impressive. All right, Mr. Zebell, confident? Not so much?
Not so much, but I will say On the Waterfront.
On the Waterfront is one of my favorite all-time movies, and it's a great Marlon Brando movie, and you should totally go watch it. Unfortunately, it's not the correct answer. But I'm glad we got to talk about On the Waterfront today. Mr. Luedtke?
Also, again, 100% confident this is correct. Fast and Furious.
Yeah, very close.
Oh, that's not it?
Yeah, very close, but no. See, now I'm even blanking on the name of the guy who starred in that movie. What's his name? Vin Diesel.
We're talking about
right.
Vin Diesel?
Thank you. Yes, there's certain similarities between
They've both
Vin
been
Diesel
bald
and-
at different times in their life, so you could mistake those two guys.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. Ms. Foster, our leader.
I have to admit, I'm not a Marlon Brando person, and I got stuck on this name. A boxcar named Desire.
Oh, you are so close. I'm gonna give you the point because that's really impressive. Streetcar Named Desire. Yes, a streetcar named Desire. Take the point anyway, because as close as Fast and the Furious was, yours was closer. So yeah, we're gonna give you the point. All right, well done. How many of you got that one correct? I saw 2 hands. Nicely done, gentlemen. All right, next question for our panel. And I think you've sort of gotten at this a little bit, but I want to give you a chance to maybe be able to bring something in that we haven't talked about yet. So, are there any common issues that you see in the people you work with, writing-wise, that we can learn from or that we should try to avoid?
Grammar. To be a professional writer, you have to have good grammar. It is the number one issue that I think I run into because you simply can't follow them. You can't figure out what they're trying to say. So that's my number one thing that I run into.
Before we get to two gentlemen, are people using Grammarly much?
Yes.
In my world, they're probably not. Most of the writing that the people who report up through me do is confidential information, therefore it's not really reviewed by a lot of people. So I don't think that most of the people that work for me are using Grammarly. I had some pretty strict English teachers, so I have pretty solid grammar, so I can handle report writing okay. So I don't see a lot of it in my field, but I imagine it is out there.
I think writing is, in a lot of people, is a lost art and a lost skill, and they don't write. They avoid it. They'll do, but there's a lot of text messaging is a tool. I find that clients and people often misinterpret text messages. They take them the wrong way. You know, you probably heard they took it the wrong way, or they're confused by things. I believe in a personal phone call or a conversation is a better way to communicate. I do think that there is people who in the School of Rock organization who have risen to any kind of prominence are very skillful writers, and they know how to communicate. They know how to use bullets and lists and direction. I think there is a common verbosity that people have. They want to say more than they need to say. Any additional words or any additional points you make in a document will confuse people, or they might focus on what you don't want them to focus on. So it's verbosity is a problem, but I think there's a general need or a feeling that people will just avoid writing, and then when they do, they're misinterpreted. So that's they got to be careful with the language to make sure you're not misunderstood.
I work with a lot of engineers, and we are very detail-oriented by nature. I've already spoke to this, but as such, we tend to be that way even to a further degree in our writing. We add a little bit too much detail, so probably one of the biggest mistakes and issues that I come across with the engineers on my team and other people that I work with is just tailoring the amount of detail to the audience. Read the room and try to figure out who you're actually speaking to. Am I talking to other fellow engineers? Am I talking to shop floor operators that are running our machines? Or am I talking to our upper level executives? The message I'm going to be delivering to those three types of people is going to be completely different. I made a mistake early on in my career. I gave a presentation to our vice presidents and our president on a project I had been working on. It had 95 slides. This presentation took an hour and a half. I thought I was being detailed and conveying the entire message, showing them all of this wonderful work that I did and how much detail I went into, and they were falling asleep. And afterwards, my boss pulled me aside and he said, "Don't ever do that again. That was way too long." And from then on, I have greatly adjusted and reduced the amount of things that I include in all of my communication, not just reports themselves, but that's the biggest struggle, especially with newer and younger engineers, is coming out of school, having a preconception that a lot of detail is required in all cases, and it is in some, but there's quite a few more instances where tailoring that to your audience is more important, and you can chop a lot out of the things you're trying to communicate and still effectively say what you're trying to say.
Awesome. Let's get a third trivia question here quickly. I'm going to give you a set of song lyrics. Your job is going to be to tell me the name of the band and, for a second point, the LHS alum who wrote them. Here come the lyrics. Yes, I know my enemies. They're the teachers who taught me to fight me. Compromise, conformity, assimilation, submission, ignorance, hypocrisy, brutality, the elite, all of which are American dreams. Name the band, name the person who wrote them, who graduated from LHS. Audience, anybody confident? All right. Couple hands in the back. Same two gentlemen have been raising their hand for like every question. That's your competition right back there, folks. What happened to the Jeopardy music? I thought someone was rocking it earlier. All right, any confidence from the panel?
99%.
99, okay. So confident before, 99%. We'll see how this plays out. All right, Mr. Luedtke, let's see what you got.
I got Rage Against the Machine, Tom Morello.
Oh, what do you guys think? We got a couple initial no's, but we've got, okay. Mr. Zebell, what do you got?
I have Tom Morello, Rage Against the Machine.
Okay, and Miss Foster.
Pink Pony Club,
Pink Pony Club, yeah. Unfortunately, two of the three were correct, not the other one. Yeah, give yourself 2 points, Mr. Zebell, Mr. Luedtke, nicely done. Okay, so one of the questions on I think a lot of people's minds these days is how artificial intelligence is changing the way things are done. So can you just talk for a second about how it's coming into or not your profession in terms of the writing?
So, AI is coming into writing in the social services field in a really strong and also interesting way. So, if any of you know about how therapy works, it's highly confidential, right? What gets said in the room stays in the room. And so people are trying to figure out, how do you have a bot in the room that will help the clinician write the note, but also keep the person's confidentiality? And so there are emerging tools around that, but it's a really interesting debate happening between technology and confidentiality. And then also, for those of us who are not necessarily in the therapy room anymore, but are in an administrative role, we're using AI to really help us do our jobs more efficiently. So I recently transitioned us over to a new phone system. That phone system required that I had a policy that I did basically have, but it wasn't written yet, and it wasn't available to them. And so I took 3 pieces of information that I knew needed to be in there and also guided how I did what I did. I threw it into ChatGPT and I said, write me a policy. And then I threw that policy at my phone company and they approved my application. That in previous years would have taken me a week to do, right? And in the click of a button, I was able to pull it off. So, but then also, I was sharing that there was a recent article of some young people who have been victimized by artificial intelligence and the people behind them, thinking that they were talking to real people who ended up completing suicide or otherwise being harmed. And so AI in the world of human interaction, which is what I do, is a dangerous and exciting time. So especially in my field, we're spending a lot of time talking about AI.
Excuse me, I'm just gonna reframe it just a little bit in terms of not what it does for the career, but being a writer, what it does for your life. It teaches you, it's a discipline of writing, connects you with people and yourself. There's a large amount of people out there who are, and I'm one of them, who are diary writers. And one of the hardest questions you're going to ever face in your life, if you can answer it right now, good for you. Like, who are you and what are you all about and where are your values? And you find those through writing. You also find understanding of other people and other perspectives by listening and writing about it. So writing is absolutely a creative process. It's a learning process. And actually, as far as I'm concerned, it's wildly important to living a good life. So by being a writer, you will find your way through your writing, through your introspection, through your ability to think things out and summarize things and find the point. Not everything will get you that. It may give you ability to find the answer to some quadratic equation or something like that. But writing will actually give you the ability to find purpose, point, all kinds of things, from the very simple on the ground stuff to metaphysical and spiritual things, if that's where you want to go. So I'd say it's super important to do and to practice. The hardest part about it is the honesty and the whole deep thought that goes along with being a writer. I would also say, just in terms of writing too, just a period about writing, look for the truth in things, look for the message, and you'll be a better writer and be authentic about it. And I thought about this as we were given this assignment to be on this panel. AI is never ever gonna be able to reproduce what a person would say, how they would say it, what's the thought behind it. They're just pulling stuff from the internet and dumping it down, and it's as soulless as it gets. So writing is absolutely a human endeavor, and I would say if you guys are all into writing, no matter what you do, you're a doctor, lawyer, whatever, keep that writing as part of what you want to do, and you'll be a lot happier as a person long term.
Yeah, I work with a lot of people older than myself. The manufacturing sector is an aging sector, and it leaves a lot of opportunities for young people like you and I to step in and take advantage of emerging technologies, and AI is one of them. A lot of people that I work with look at AI as a negative thing, whereas I do not, and I leverage it for quite a bit of what I do every single day, not just from a writing perspective, but also from a coding perspective. I'm able to use AI to program in Python and do C++ and Java programming, and it does it for me so quick. It saves me so much time. And it allows me to do things with data analysis and reporting that I could do on my own, but it would take a lot more effort. And so while AI in the manufacturing sector is still in its early stages and it's still kind of starting to take off, it's not going anywhere, and it's an essential tool, and that's how I look at it. One of the things that that I mentioned before with the data analysis, that my job requires a lot of data collection and a lot of parsing of that data, and having AI to go through that for me and giving me the opportunity to prompt it the way I want to prompt it, to look at it from different angles quickly, allows me to be more responsive. And I think if we use AI like that, like it's a tool, because that's what it is, then it can get you guys pretty far. When you start to abuse that tool is when it becomes unuseful. And a little bit to their point is, it is a bit of a scary thing. We don't know how far it will go. Will it be able to replace a lot of what we do as humans, how humans speak? We're already seeing that it's doing that in a lot of sectors. But in the manufacturing world where I come from, we're using it to do machine learning, and we're using it to do automated feedback to our CNC machines on the shop floor so that we can run more of those machines unattended, which means we can free up people to do other tasks. And so this is just another instance of this tool being an effective thing for us to use to make money as a business.
Awesome, good perspective. We've got about 6 minutes left. I want to make sure we have time for you guys to ask any questions about, well, things that could help you with your education in high school and college as it relates to writing. So does anyone have a question you want to make sure? Yes.
Hi there. So we have a small group of students right now who are currently in internships, but I think there's going to be, majority of the students here are going to be in an internship at some point in their career. So I just had a quick question. Could be related to writing, could not be, about like some advice that you would give to students during an internship, maybe ways that they could stand out or get the most out of an internship.
So I work with interns all the time. We host interns at YSC. And my former role, I was in charge of the interns. And my number one piece of advice for an intern is to be open and willing to learn. The interns who say, well, I can't do that, or that's not the population I want to work with, or no, I can't take that client. That is not an intern who is trying to learn, right? And internships are all about learning. So it's not necessarily related to writing, but my number one is just go into it knowing that you want to learn. And I will also tell all of my interns that they're always worried about getting it wrong, and I tell them, you're going to get it wrong. What you need to do is not get it wrong the same way the second time. So learn and keep moving forward, incorporate the feedback, and don't make the same mistakes.
I've managed many interns over the years, and I'd say for them, what does them the best is in the internship, have a report or something you write, like a takeaway example of what you did. So when you go to the next person, in my internship, here's the report I wrote. That's very valuable. A little softer is the relationships you can make during an internship. So be professional and be helpful to people around you, everyone you interact with. They'll recognize authentic effort and interest, and just be agreeable. I'm generally a disagreeable person, but I'd say be agreeable, and you will make a relationship or two out of it. The other thing is, take your assignments as far as you can go, and maybe even do a little value added in the process, like question, or not challenge, but question what your assignment is to see if you can make it a little bigger than at first, and you'll be better off. And thank you for the heads up. I'm ordering my Lollapalooza tickets here. I'm so sorry, they just went.
I'll just keep my response really simple and straightforward. The most successful interns that I've ever worked with are the ones that are very curious and ask a lot of questions. Do those things and you'll do okay in an internship.
Awesome. I think there was a hand that was starting to go up over here before our last question. Is that true? No. Okay, so we do have some writing samples that you guys brought with. Is there anything, Mr. Luedtke, that you want to kind of tell us about either of yours that might be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, if you'll go back to the previous one, it's detailed to a degree, but it's very structured. You'll see it's got overview, and it's got headings, and it's got specifics about exactly what we're doing in this writing. And so this kind of goes to my earlier points about being detailed but succinct, and we've all kind of addressed that to some degree, and I think that's probably your guys' biggest takeaway today from this panel.
What is this that we're looking at, by the way?
This is a project report for a customer where they wanted us to improve on the performance of an existing tool in a special material that's used in the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter aircraft. And so that's what this sample material is here shown on the bottom there. And we've now successfully implemented that tool based on this testing, and we continue to have good sales with this customer. So.
And then what about this one?
This is another R&D project that we did to develop a tool for doing steel and titanium machining with a little bit of aluminum mixed in there. And we're showing kind of the different types of testing and test cuts that we had to do to develop the tool. And so this is more of a presentation style report where I would be giving this in front of a group of my colleagues and upper management.
Is there a software that you guys typically use when you're preparing this sort of stuff?
I'm using the same things you guys use: Microsoft Office, PowerPoint, Word, Excel.
Cool. I just want to make sure I have time. Any questions in the audience? We got about 1 minute left. Okay, cool. Let's just do a trivia question for fun. Last one. We'll see if anybody can go perfect here. 1956. In 1956, a series of 5-minute commercials aired on TV that were titled "The Man from Libertyville." Who were they about? In other words, who was that man from Libertyville? Audience members, anybody confident? Raise your hand. All right, that's impressive. Little bit of history, we'll say. Oh, and that's the bell. Not Victory Auto Wreckers, great Chicago commercial. It was Adlai Stevenson, folks. Adlai Stevenson. Have a great day.